The courthouse steps burned under the afternoon sun. Bright light bounced off the stone columns as two cops stormed forward, eyes locked on a black woman holding a slim leather folder, hands where I can see them. One barked, his voice sharp enough to cut the chatter of the crowd. Heads turned, phones came out, the air thickened with suspense. The woman didn't flinch. Calm, steady, she raised an eyebrow. "Is there a reason you're stopping me?" The taller cop smirked, already pulling the cuffs from his belt. "Yeah, you look suspicious. ID now." The other snapped the steel cuffs open with a loud click. The sound echoed down the marble steps like a gunshot, gasps, murmurs. A child tugged at his mother's sleeve, whispering, "What did she do?" The woman's grip tightened on the folder. She leaned in, her voice low but laced with steel. "You really don't know who you're about to put those cuffs on, do you?" But they didn't stop. Cold steel locked around her wrists under the blazing sun. And in that moment, with the crowd staring, the question exploded. What happens when two cops cuff a black woman outside the courthouse, not knowing she's the judge assigned to their case? The cuffs bit into her wrists as the crowd pressed closer, phones held high like torches. The afternoon sun painted the marble steps gold, but the scene unfolding was anything but bright. "Stop resisting," the tall cop shouted, forcing her shoulder down. "I said I'm not resisting." She snapped back, twisting against his grip. Her folder fell to the ground, papers scattering like startled birds. The second officer shoved the papers aside with his boot, tightening his hold on her other arm. "You think you can talk your way out? Not today." The woman's eyes burned. "You're making a mistake." The crowd murmured louder now. A man in a business suit muttered, "She didn't do anything." Someone else yelled, "Let her go." But the cops didn't listen. They pressed her against the cold stone pillar, cuffs clinking as they forced her arms higher. "ID says one thing," the tall cop growled, his hand digging into her shoulder, "but my gut says another." "What are you hiding?" Her voice cut sharp and steady. "What I'm hiding is the truth you're too blind to see." The officer leaned closer, sneering. "Don't play smart with me." For the first time her calm cracked. She yanked her face free, chin lifted defiantly. "If you knew who I was, you wouldn't dare put your hands on me." Gasps rippled through the crowd. The second officer frowned, uneasy now, but still yanked at her arm. "Enough. We'll settle this inside." "Inside," she repeated, her lips curling into something between a laugh and a warning. "You want me inside that courthouse?" Her eyes locked on his, cold fire blazing. "Then prepare yourselves, because in 10 minutes, I'll be the one deciding your fate." The crowd erupted in shocked whispers. The two cops froze, exchanging a confused glance. "What the hell is she talking about?" the tall one muttered. The woman straightened, the steel biting her wrists but her voice unshaken. "You don't know it yet, but you've just cuffed the judge assigned to your case." The world seemed to stop. Silence stretched thick over the courthouse steps. Then a phone somewhere clicked, capturing the moment. And just like that, what began as an arrest turned into the storm of their lives. The silence on the courthouse steps shattered like glass. "Judge," a woman from the crowd gasped. Dozens of phones now pointed at the scene, lenses recording every second. The tall cop's grip faltered for a beat, but his pride snapped back like a whip. "She's bluffing. Judges don't walk around like this." The woman's jaw clenched as the cuffs dug deeper into her skin. "And what does a judge look like to you?" The second cop shifted uncomfortably, glancing at the papers still fluttering on the ground, legal documents, court seals shining under the sun. Something about it felt too real. Enough games. The tall cop barked, shoving her forward. "Inside, now?" The crowd booed. "She's telling the truth." Someone shouted, "Uncuff her." But the officers ignored them, dragging her toward the towering courthouse doors. Her heels scraped against the stone, but her gaze never wavered. She wasn't pleading, she was daring. As they yanked her through the doorway, she hissed through clenched teeth, "Every move you make right now will be on record. When we step into that courtroom, I'll remember it." The tall cop leaned close to her ear. "Lady, I don't care if you're the president. Right now, you're just another perp in cuffs." She snapped her head toward him, eyes like fire. "And right now, You're a cop digging your own grave." The words hung heavy in the marble hall. Even the echoes seemed to flinch. The second officer hesitated. His grip loosened just slightly. "Hey, maybe we should verify who she is before. Don't tell me how to do my job." The tall one snapped, yanking harder. "She's coming with us." The woman stumbled, caught herself, then straightened with an air that made even the bustling clerks pause and stare. She wasn't broken. She wasn't scared. She was waiting. By the time they shoved her into a side room, the tension was a living thing, thick, choking, impossible to ignore. The crowd outside was still chanting, cameras flashing through the glass, pressure mounting by the second. She turned, wrists cuffed in front of her now, and locked eyes with both men. Her voice was calm, razor, sharp. "You have no idea what you've started." The second officer swallowed hard. "Sir, if she's telling the truth." The tall cop slammed the table. "She's not." His voice cracked just enough to betray doubt. The woman leaned forward, smile cold, unflinching. "Then uncuff me. Let me walk out there and prove it." The room went still, and for the first time the cops weren't sure who was in control anymore. The heavy wooden door creaked open, and a clerk rushed in, eyes darting between the woman in cuffs and the two officers. "What's going on here?" The clerk demanded, her voice trembling. "You can't just drag someone in like this, especially not her." The taller cop squared his shoulders, trying to look firm even as sweat dotted his brow. She was acting suspicious outside the courthouse. Standard procedure. The clerk froze, her hand flying to her mouth. "Suspicious? Do you even know who that is?" The second cop shifted uneasily. We're verifying." The woman in cuffs leaned back against the chair, wrists bound but posture regal, unshaken. "Tell them, clerk. Tell them exactly who I am." The clerk's voice rose, sharp and horrified. "That's Judge Naomi Carter, the presiding judge for today's trial." The room spun. The tall cop's face drained of color. The second one staggered a step back, his hand slipping off his holster. "Judge." The taller one forced out a laugh, brittle and hollow. "No, judges don't walk around like this. This is some kind of stunt." But the murmurs outside the room were growing louder. Dozens of footsteps, voices, and the buzz of recording phones pressed like thunder against the walls. The woman leaned forward, her cuffed hands resting on the table, and spoke with a calm authority that silenced the chaos in an instant. "You had your chance to listen. You chose humiliation. You chose power over reason. And now, both of you will stand trial. Inside my courtroom." Her words struck like a gavel. The second officer swallowed hard, eyes flicking toward the clerk, silently pleading for confirmation. The clerk only nodded. It was real, every word of it. The tall cop's hand trembled, but he clenched it into a fist. "Even if you are the judge," he hissed, "that doesn't put you above the law." Naomi's smile was cold, steady. "No, it puts me in charge of it." The door burst open again. A swarm of courthouse security rushed in, armed and sharp, pied. The crowd behind them cheered as they pushed the cops aside. "Uncuff her. Now." The head of security barked. The tall cop hesitated, pride battling panic. The second one didn't. He fumbled with the keys, the cuffs clicking open with the same sharp echo they had made minutes ago. Only now, the sound carried a whole new weight. Naomi stood, rubbing her wrists. No weakness, no fear. She walked past the two officers without looking back. And as the courtroom doors opened for her, the crowd parted in silence, the tension electric. Every step she took was a countdown to their reckoning. The courtroom buzzed like a hive, every seat packed, cameras hidden in handbags, whispers darting from one row to the next. The air wasn't just tense, it was electric. Then the doors slammed open. Judge Naomi Carter strode in, no cuffs, no hesitation. Her black robe swept behind her like a shadow, the very image of authority reborn. The same woman the cops had manhandled minutes earlier now stood above them all. "All rise." The bailiff called, voice cracking under the weight of the moment. Everyone stood, everyone but the two officers. They froze, eyes wide, their pride shattering under the collective gaze of the room. Naomi took her seat at the bench, her gavel resting within reach. Her eyes cut through the silence, landing directly on them. "Bring the defendants forward," she ordered. Gasps exploded through the gallery. The very cops who had cuffed her were now escorted to the front, their badges glinting under the harsh lights. The taller one clenched his jaw, muttering, "This is insane. This is some kind of setup." But the second officer's shoulders sagged. He knew it was real. "Officers," Naomi began, her voice smooth but sharp, "I gave you chances. I told you who I was, and instead of listening, you escalated. You chose to humiliate. You chose force over law, and now—" She paused, letting the silence strangle them. "You will be judged for it." The taller cop snapped, "You can't be the judge on a case that involves you." The room erupted in whispers, but Naomi only leaned forward, eyes locked on his. "You're right, which is why I've already requested an independent review. But until then, I am documenting every second of your misconduct. On the record." The clerk nodded furiously, typing at lightning speed. The tall cop's fists trembled. His world was collapsing, and he knew it. But Naomi wasn't finished. She turned to the gallery, her voice carrying like thunder. "This isn't just about two men abusing their badge. This is about every person who thinks power makes them untouchable." A cheer rose from the back rows. The tall cop growled, lunging forward, but security shoved him back. Naomi lifted the gavel, her eyes burning. "Order in this court." The slam echoed like a gunshot, silencing the chaos. For the first time, the two men realized this wasn't just an arrest gone wrong. It was the beginning of their downfall. The gavel's echo still hung in the air as Judge Naomi Carter adjusted her robe and leaned forward, eyes never leaving the two officers. "Officer Daniels, Officer Cole," she said slowly, naming them for the record. "Do you understand the severity of what you've done today?" Daniels, the taller cop, veins bulging in his neck, snapped back. "We did our job. She was acting suspicious. We had reason." Naomi's lips curved into a razor, sharp smile. "Reason, let's test that." She tapped her desk. The clerk nodded, then pressed a button. Suddenly, the room filled with the tinny sound of a recording. "Hands where I can see them." Daniel's voice crackled through the speakers, followed by the unmistakable click of cuffs snapping shut. Then Naomi's voice, calm but firm. "Do you even know who you're about to put those cuffs on?" The courtroom gasped. Naomi's voice cut through the murmurs. "Ladies and gentlemen, this was recorded by multiple witnesses on those courthouse steps. The evidence is undeniable." Cole, the second cop, shifted in his seat, face pale. "Judge, you thought, Naomi interrupted, slamming her hand on the bench, "that your badge gave you the right to humiliate, to intimidate, to silence. You thought wrong." The gallery erupted in applause before the bailiff shouted for order. Naomi turned her gaze like a spotlight back to the men. "Officer Cole, your hesitation showed you knew it was wrong, and yet you went along with it. That makes you complicit." Cole's head dropped. Sweat beaded on his forehead. Daniels exploded, his voice booming. "This is a circus. You're using your bench to get revenge." Naomi didn't flinch. She leaned forward, her words slicing like knives. "Revenge, no. This isn't revenge, Officer Daniels. This is accountability, and accountability is what terrifies men like you." The crowd stirred, energy crackling in the air. Daniels tried to stand, but security shoved him back into his seat. His face was red, his jaw grinding. He turned to Cole, spitting, "Don't just sit there, say something." But Cole only shook his head, whispering, "We're finished." Naomi raised the gavel again, her voice cold and final. "This court will not tolerate abuse of power, not from criminals on the street, and not from those sworn to protect the law. Both of you will remain in custody until further review." The slam of the gavel thundered through the courtroom. The crowd erupted again, this time in cheers, and for the first time, Daniels and Cole realized they weren't just facing one woman. They were facing justice itself. By the time Naomi struck her gavel a second time, the courtroom wasn't just a room anymore. It was the center of a storm. Outside, the courthouse steps were swarmed with reporters, cameras flashing like lightning. Microphones shoved forward as anchors shouted over each other. Judge Carter arrests cops on her own steps. Abuse of power or justice served. Live updates on the most shocking courtroom clash of the year. The footage of Naomi in cuffs had already gone viral, replaying on every screen, every channel. Millions were watching, waiting. Inside, Daniels fought his restraints, his face red with fury. "This is a media stunt. You're humiliating us in front of the entire country." Naomi's gaze cut through him like steel. "You humiliated yourselves when you put cuffs on an innocent woman without cause. The cameras didn't make you do that. Your arrogance did." Cole slumped lower, his hands trembling. He could feel the weight of the crowd, the cameras, the headlines crushing him. Suddenly, the heavy courtroom doors burst open. A group of attorneys stormed in, led by a sharp-eyed woman in a navy suit. She didn't hesitate, she marched straight to the bench. "Your Honor," she said, her voice smooth and commanding, "I represent the officers. We demand immediate dismissal of these proceedings. They cannot be both judge and defendants in the same case." The gallery hissed. Naomi raised her chin. "And yet, counsel, here we are. This court has jurisdiction to document misconduct until a higher authority steps in." The lawyer smirked. "Then I suggest you prepare yourself, Judge Carter, because every second you sit there, every word you speak, is being watched. And when this trial is reviewed, it won't just be the officers on the line." The threat hung heavy in the air. Naomi leaned forward, her voice low, cutting. "I welcome review, because I know the truth doesn't flinch under scrutiny. Can your client say the same?" The gallery erupted with applause again, louder this time, reporters nearly trampling each other outside to capture the roar. Daniels slammed his fists against the table. "This is a joke. We'll bury you in appeals, in lawyers, in politics." Naomi's gavel crashed down, silencing him. Her eyes burned. "No, Officer Daniels. What you're buried under is the weight of your own actions, and no lawyer, no politics, no noise will dig you out." The tension was unbearable. Even the cameras seemed to lean closer. This wasn't just a trial anymore. It was a war between the system as it was, and the justice it was meant to be. The room was thick with tension. Every word was being streamed live, every breath dissected by millions outside those walls. Naomi leaned back in her chair, calm, steady, but her eyes, they locked on Daniels with the precision of a blade. "You speak of burying me with politics, with lawyers, with appeals," she said, her voice echoing across the chamber. "But before you drown in excuses, let's shine a light on facts." She tapped the desk twice. The clerk's fingers flew across the keyboard. A new video flickered onto the monitors lining the courtroom. The footage froze everyone. Bodycam footage, Daniel's own camera, time-stamped that very morning. The crowd saw it all, the aggressive approach, the smirk, the snap of cuffs, the arrogance dripping from every move. Then Naomi's voice in the footage. "Do you even know who you're about to put those cuffs on?" The gallery gasped as the video showed Daniel's mocking grin, his reply, "I don't care if you're the president. Right now, you're just another perp in cuffs." A silence, heavy, crushing. Daniel's face turned ghost white. Cole buried his in his hands. Naomi's voice cut through the stillness, sharper than the cuffs that had once bound her. "Officer Daniels, your own bodycam testifies against you, against your arrogance, against your abuse of power, and against your oath to serve." The lawyer shot up from her seat, shouting, "Objection. This evidence was never submitted for review." Naomi's gavel slammed down. "This evidence was pulled directly from the public records request submitted an hour ago. It is official, and it is damning." The gallery erupted like a thunderstorm. Cheers, shouts, even tears. Reporters outside screamed into cameras, voices lost in the frenzy. Daniels lunged forward, his voice cracking with rage. "This is entrapment. This is your downfall." Naomi cut in, her tone ice cold. Cole finally lifted his head, his voice broken. "Judge Carter, I didn't want to. I told him to stop." Naomi's gaze softened for only a second, then sharpened again. "And yet, you followed. You chose silence when you should have chosen justice. And silence, Officer Cole, is complicity." The lawyer looked rattled, her confidence slipping. Daniels sat frozen, fury and fear clashing in his eyes. Naomi leaned forward, her voice rising like a gavel strike that shook the entire room. "You thought today would end with my humiliation. Instead, it ends with your exposure, not just to this court, but to the world watching." The gallery roared, phones lifted higher, cameras zoomed closer. Daniels slumped, his defiance cracking at last. For the first time, it wasn't him in control. It was justice. The courtroom was no longer just a room. It was an arena, a stage where truth had cut through every lie, every excuse, every ounce of arrogance. Daniels sat slumped, sweat dripping down his temples, eyes hollow. Cole's face was pale, his hands trembling. The lawyer tried to shuffle papers, her voice faltering, but the roar of the gallery drowned her out. Judge Naomi Carter rose from the bench. Silence swept through the room like a wave. Cameras clicked, hearts pounded. Every eye was on her. She lifted her gavel, holding it steady in her hand, and spoke with a voice that filled not just the chamber, but the world outside. Today began with humiliation, not mine, but theirs. Men who wear a badge, but not the honor it demands. Men who believed force was greater than truth, intimidation greater than justice. Her eyes burned into Daniels. Officer Daniels, your arrogance has stripped you of your badge. You will face full charges for misconduct, abuse of power, and unlawful arrest. She turned to Cole, her voice softening but unyielding. Officer Cole, weakness is not innocence. You chose silence when justice demanded your voice, and for that, you too will be held accountable. The gallery erupted with shouts, half in shock, half in thunderous applause. Naomi raised her gavel higher, her words sharp as steel. This court does not bow to power or politics or fear. It bows only to truth, and the truth today is undeniable. No one, no matter the badge they wear, stands above the law. Bang! The gavel crashed down. The sound echoed like a gunshot, final and absolute. Reporters sprinted for the doors, news anchors shouting into cameras. Judge Carter delivers historic ruling. Cops exposed in live courtroom drama. A moment that will redefine justice in America. Daniels was dragged to his feet by security, his fury now nothing more than a broken shadow. Cole followed, silent, eyes downcast. Naomi stepped down from the bench, her robe sweeping across the floor. The crowd parted as she walked through them, the air electric with awe. Outside, the courthouse steps blazed in the evening sun. Reporters swarmed, microphones flashing, but Naomi didn't stop. She raised her hand, silencing them with a single gesture. Her final words were simple, steady, unforgettable. This was never about me. It was about reminding this nation justice will not be cuffed. The crowd erupted, cameras flashing like fireworks as her words echoed into history. And behind her, the two disgraced officers disappeared into custody, no longer the hunters, but the hunted. Justice had spoken.